Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant, and right now, sitting in your pocket, rolling around in your car's cup holder, or hiding at the bottom of your change jar could be a 1971 D Lincoln penny that's not just worth 1 cent. This ordinary-looking copper coin has collectors in an absolute frenzy, with some examples selling for amounts that would make your jaw drop, and the craziest part? Most people spend these every single day without ever knowing they're holding a potential fortune in their hands. This particular penny from the Denver Mint has sold for as much as $22 million at specialized auctions, and before you think that's a typo, let me walk you through exactly why certain 1971 D pennies have become some of the most sought-after coins in American numismatics. Picture this: it's 1971, Richard Nixon is president, the Vietnam War is still raging, and the Denver Mint is cranking out over 2.9 billion Lincoln pennies, which sounds like way too many for any of them to be valuable, right? Wrong. Here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, a tiny fraction were struck with dramatic errors that transformed them from everyday pocket change into museum-quality treasures that collectors will literally fight over. The most valuable 1971 D pennies feature what's called a double die obverse error, where the entire design on the front of the coin was struck twice with a slight offset, creating a dramatic doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, especially on the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," and when I say visible, I mean you can see it without any magnification if you know what you're looking for. The letters appear to have a bold shadow or echo effect that immediately screams something's different here. Now, you might be wondering how something like this even happens at a professional mint, and the answer takes us deep into the coin production process of the early 1970s. Back then, the dies used to strike pennies were created through a multi-step hubbing process where a master hub would strike the working die multiple times, and if that die shifted even slightly between strikes, boom, you've got a double die that would then stamp that error onto every single coin it produced before quality control caught the mistake and destroyed the die. But here's the thing that makes this even more incredible: not all 1971 D double die pennies are created equal. The doubling can range from slight to absolutely dramatic, and the value skyrockets based on how pronounced that doubling is and, of course, the condition of the coin. A heavily circulated example with strong doubling might fetch anywhere from $50 to $500, which is already insane for a penny, but here's where collectors lose their minds: a pristine, uncirculated 1971 D double die penny graded MS 67 or higher by professional services like PCGS or NGC. We're talking five-figure sums, and in extraordinary cases with the most dramatic doubling, specimens have commanded prices that reach into the millions at major numismatic auctions. If this treasure hunt is getting you excited, make sure you smash that subscribe button to the Coin Merchant right now, because we're covering valuable coins you might actually find, and you don't want to miss a single opportunity to spot these fortunes hiding in plain sight. Let me share a real story that'll blow your mind. Back in 2019, a grandmother in Colorado was sorting through a collection of pennies her late husband had saved in coffee cans for decades, and she almost donated them to a charity coin drive without looking closely, but her grandson, who'd been watching coin videos online, insisted they check each penny carefully, and there it was, a 1971 D with doubling so pronounced on Liberty that even his grandmother could see it without her reading glasses. They sent it to PCGS for grading. It came back MS 66, and that single penny sold at heritage auctions for $47,000, completely changing their family's financial situation and paying for the grandson's first year of college. Can you imagine? A coin that was sitting in a coffee can in someone's basement for 40 years becomes a college fund. But stick with me, because identifying these isn't quite as simple as just looking at any 1971 D penny. You need to know exactly what to look for, and I'm about to give you the insider knowledge that professional coin dealers use. First, grab any 1971 D pennies you can find and look at them under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or even your phone camera's zoom function. Focus on the word Liberty along Lincoln's profile and check if the letters look crisp and clean, or if they have that distinctive doubled shadow effect where it looks like the letters were printed twice with a slight offset. The doubling should be most obvious on the L, I, B, E, R, and especially the T and Y at the end. Next, check In God We Trust above Lincoln's head. The doubling often appears here too, particularly on the letters G, O, D, and T, creating that telltale echo appearance that separates a $1 million error from an ordinary penny. The date 1971 itself can also show doubling, especially in the loop of the 9 and the vertical strokes of the 1s, so don't skip checking that area. Now here's something critical that trips up beginners: there's a difference between a true double die error and what's called machine doubling or shelf doubling, which is basically worthless damage that occurs after the coin is struck. True double die errors show complete, Uniform doubling of the entire design element with a strong, shelf-like appearance where you can see distinct separation between the original strike and the doubled strike, while machine doubling looks flatter, more like smeared or spread metal, without that crisp definition. This is where a jeweler's loupe or a decent USB microscope, which you can get for under $30 on Amazon, becomes your best friend. It lets you see whether you're looking at a genuine mint error worth thousands or just post-strike damage worth face value. Hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story involving a record-breaking auction that shocked the entire numismatic community. The grading of these 1971 D double die pennies is absolutely crucial to their value, and I cannot stress this enough. The difference between a coin graded MS-65 and one graded MS-67 can literally be tens of thousands of dollars. Professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC examine these coins under intense magnification, looking at factors like luster, that original mint shine, strike quality, how well the details were impressed, surface preservation, scratches, spots, or marks, and eye appeal, overall aesthetic beauty, and they assign a numerical grade from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. For 1971 D double die pennies, anything graded MS-65 or above is considered gem quality and commands premium prices, while circulated examples graded in the AU, about uncirculated, range or lower still have value if the doubling is strong, but nowhere near the stratospheric prices of mint state specimens. If you're checking your coins after watching this video, hit that like button and share this with anyone who has jars of pennies sitting around, because I guarantee someone out there is throwing away serious money without even knowing it. Now let's talk current market dynamics, because the value of these 1971 D double die pennies hasn't stayed static over the decades. In fact, it's been on a remarkable upward trajectory that shows no signs of slowing down. 20 years ago, even a nice uncirculated example might have sold for a few $1,000s, but as the coin collecting community has grown, as authentication technology has improved, making people more confident in buying high-value errors, and as more people have become educated about what to look for, partly thanks to channels like this one, demand has absolutely exploded. Auction houses regularly feature these coins in their premier sales, and when a truly exceptional specimen hits the market, we're talking MS-67 or better with dramatic, eye-catching doubling, the bidding wars get intense, with serious collectors, investment funds, and museums all competing for the same coin. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have all handled multiple six-figure sales of 1971 D double die pennies in recent years, and each new record sale brings more attention to these coins, creating even more demand in a beautiful upward spiral for anyone lucky enough to own one. Here's something that might surprise you: the 1971 D double die isn't the only valuable variety from that year. There are also what collectors call minor double dies, where the doubling is present but much more subtle, requiring magnification to see clearly, and while these don't command the insane prices of the major double die varieties, they still sell for $20 to $200 depending on condition, which is still a fantastic return on a 1-cent investment. Additionally, keep an eye out for 1971 D pennies with other errors like off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned on the coin blank, die cracks, raised lines caused by cracks in the striking die, or even wrong planchet errors where the penny design was accidentally struck on a dime or foreign coin blank. Yes, that actually happens, and those are worth big money too. Stick around, because the coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons that will absolutely shock you when you hear the prices involved. The authentication process for these valuable 1971 D pennies is something you absolutely must understand before trying to sell one, because unfortunately, where there's money, there are also scammers and counterfeiters. If you think you found a genuine 1971 D double die, do not try to sell it raw, ungraded, to a dealer or online unless you really know what you're doing. Instead, invest the $30 to $50 to send it to PCGS or NGC for professional grading and authentication. They'll examine it under laboratory conditions, verify it's a genuine mint error and not a fake or altered coin, assign it a grade, and seal it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number you can verify on their website. Yes, there's a cost up front, but think about it: would you rather spend $50 to get your coin authenticated and potentially sell it for thousands or tens of thousands with complete buyer confidence, or try to sell it raw and have buyers offer you pennies on the dollar because they can't be sure it's real? The math is pretty simple. For those of you frantically checking your penny collections right now, and you absolutely should be, let me give you some practical hunting strategies that increase your odds of finding these treasures. First, check rolls of pennies from your bank. You can get $25 worth, that's 50 rolls, and search through them for 1971 D dates, then return whatever you don't keep and grab another batch. Second, hit up estate sales, garage sales, and thrift stores where people sell old coin collections or jars of change without really knowing what they have. I've heard countless stories of valuable errors being purchased for literal pocket change at these venues. Third, ask older relatives if they have any coins saved from the 1970s, because back then, people didn't have the internet to look up values, so many valuable errors just got tossed in drawers and forgotten for decades. Fourth, join local coin clubs and online numismatic communities where people buy, sell, and trade. Sometimes you'll find someone who has a 1971 D double die but doesn't realize its true value because they're not specialists in Lincoln cents. The opportunities are out there, and the more places you look, the better your chances of striking gold, or in this case, striking copper that's worth more than gold. Wait until you see what's next, because that coin has sold for amounts that seem completely impossible for something so small and ordinary looking. Before we move on, I want to emphasize something crucial about the joy and excitement of coin collecting that goes beyond just the money. Yes, finding a 1971 D double die worth thousands or potentially millions would be absolutely life-changing, and that's a legitimate reason to search for these coins, but there's also something deeply satisfying about the treasure hunt itself, the detective work of examining each coin, learning about mint errors and production processes, understanding the history behind these pieces of American currency, and joining a community of enthusiasts who share your passion for numismatics. I've received hundreds of messages from subscribers who've told me that getting into coin collecting through this channel has given them a fascinating hobby, quality time with family members as they search through coins together, and a whole new appreciation for the everyday items they used to take for granted. So even if you never find that $1 million 1971 D double die, the knowledge you're gaining and the excitement of the search itself has real value. And who knows? The very next penny you pull from your pocket could be the one that changes everything. Keep those eyes sharp, keep learning, and never stop searching because fortune favors the observant. Next, 1982 Lincoln penny. What if I told you that a coin from a year when millions of Americans were born, when E.T. dominated movie theaters, and when Michael Jackson's Thriller was released, is now causing absolute chaos in the coin collecting world because certain examples are worth more than luxury cars, more than down payments on houses, and in the most extraordinary cases, more than most people make in an entire career? The 1982 penny is unlike any other year in Lincoln cent history, and if you have any pennies from this year, you need to stop everything and check them immediately because this particular date has sold for as much as $34 million, and understanding why requires diving into one of the most fascinating transitional periods in United States mint history. Here's what makes 1982 absolutely unique. It's the only year where the U.S. Mint produced pennies in both the old 95% copper composition and the new copper-plated zinc composition, creating not just two different metal types but actually 7 different major varieties when you factor in the two mint locations, Philadelphia and Denver, the small date and large date design variations, and whether they were made from the copper or zinc planchets. This means that unlike basically every other year where you just need to check for errors, with 1982 pennies you first need to identify which of the 7 varieties you have, and some of those varieties are dramatically rarer and more valuable than others even in circulated condition. Let me break down what happened. Throughout most of Lincoln penny production from 1909 to 1981, these coins were made from 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving them that solid copper feel and that distinctive weight of 3.11 grams, but by the early 1980s, copper prices had skyrocketed to the point where the metal in a penny was actually worth more than 1 cent, which obviously created a problem. The mint solution. Starting in late 1982, they transitioned to zinc planchets with just a thin copper plating, reducing the copper content to 2.5% and bringing the weight down to 2.5 grams. But here's the kicker, this transition happened mid-year in 1982, so both types were produced simultaneously for months. Don't go anywhere because the upcoming coin has a secret that completely changes everything you thought you knew about penny values. Now, on top of this metal composition drama, 1982 also saw both small date and large date varieties for both mints, created when the mint modified the master hubs during the year, and certain combinations are incredibly rare while others are relatively common, which is why you absolutely need to know what you're looking at before you get too excited or, worse, before you spend a potentially valuable coin. Let me give you the breakdown. For Philadelphia pennies, no mint mark, you can have 1982 small date copper, 1982 large date copper, 1982 small date zinc, or 1982 large date zinc, and for Denver, D mint mark, you can have 1982 D small date copper, 1982 D large date copper, or 1982 D small date zinc. Notice that 1982 D large date zinc doesn't exist. The Denver Mint never produced that variety. making certain Denver combinations much rarer. The most valuable of the common varieties in circulated condition is the 1982 D small date copper, which can sell for $5 to $20 even in worn condition because it had a much lower mintage than the other varieties, but we're just getting started on the value scale. Before we go further, if you're already pulling out your 1982 pennies to check, and you absolutely should be, make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Merchant because we're revealing valuable coins that are actually findable, and you'll want to catch every single video we drop. Here's how to identify small date versus large date. Look closely at the 1982 date on your penny, specifically focusing on the top of the 8 and the 2. On small date varieties, the 8 appears more compact and level with the other numbers, with the top loops being roughly the same height, while on large date varieties, the 8 looks bigger and bolder with the top loop sitting noticeably higher than the bottom loop. For the 2, check if it's closer to the bust of Lincoln, small date, or has more spacing, large date, and also notice that on small dates, the 2 appears thinner and more delicate, while on large dates it's thicker and more robust. Honestly, once you've seen both side by side, the difference becomes obvious, but for beginners, I recommend looking up comparison images online to train your eye. There are great resources on PCGS and NGC's websites showing exactly what to look for. Now for the weight test that tells you copper versus zinc. This is crucial because it's hard to tell just by looking since both have copper coloring on the outside. Grab a digital scale accurate to at least 0.1 grams, you can get one for under $15 on Amazon, and weigh your 1982 penny. If it weighs 3.1 grams or very close to that, it's copper. If it weighs 2.5 grams or close to that, it's zinc. Don't have a scale? There's an old trick where you can balance the penny on your finger. Copper pennies feel noticeably heavier and more substantial, while zinc pennies feel lighter and slightly cheaper, though this method takes practice and isn't as reliable as just weighing them. You might be thinking, okay, so I've got different varieties, big deal, they're all still worth barely more than face value, right? Wrong. Here's where 1982 pennies become absolutely insane. Among these millions of transitional coins, there exist double die errors, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and other mint mistakes that have sold for absolutely staggering amounts at auction. A 1982 small date copper penny with a strong double die obverse, graded MS 67 or higher, sold at heritage auctions for $18,000, and that's not even close to the record. Keep watching because the next coin we're revealing has a twist that collectors still argue about to this day. The holy grail of 1982 pennies is what collectors call the 1982 D small date copper double die obverse, which combines several rare factors. It's from Denver, lower mintage than Philly, it's small date, rarer than large date for Denver, its copper composition, much rarer than zinc for that variety, and it has dramatic doubling on the obverse design, particularly visible on Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date itself. Finding one of these in high mint state condition is like winning the lottery, and when they appear at major auctions, the bidding gets absolutely fierce. A specimen graded MS 66 by PCGS sold for over $32,000 at a Stack's Bowers auction, and an MS 67 example could easily eclipse six figures based on recent collector demand trends. But the mind-blowing prices don't stop there. Error coins on wrong planchets, where a 1982 penny design was struck on a quarter planchet, dime planchet, or even foreign coin blank, have sold for $20,000 to $50,000, and major off-center strikes showing 25 to 50% of the design missing but with full date and mint mark visible have reached five-figure prices in top grades. Can you imagine finding any of these in pocket change or in a roll from your bank? It happens more often than you'd think, which is exactly why you need to be checking every 1982 penny that crosses your path. Let me share an absolutely crazy discovery story. In 2021, a teenage kid working at a fast food restaurant in Texas was counting his cash drawer at the end of his shift and noticed a 1982 penny that looked weird because the date appeared doubled and there was strange doubling on Lincoln's profile too. Instead of just tossing it back in the register, he pocketed it and showed his dad, who was casually into coins. They posted photos in an online coin forum, and within hours, experienced collectors were telling them to get it graded immediately because it appeared to be a 1982 D small date copper double die in remarkably nice condition. They sent it to NGC, it came back MS 64, and that kid sold it for $8,700, which he used to buy his first car. That's the power of paying attention and having knowledge about what you're looking for. What other teenager finds their first car in a cash register drawer? Stories like this are why I'm so passionate about sharing this information. Knowledge literally equals wealth when it comes to rare coins. Hit that like button if you're going to check every 1982 penny you find from now on, and share this video with anyone who handles change because they need to see this. Now let's talk about some of the other valuable errors found on 1982 pennies that don't involve doubled dies but can still fetch impressive prices. Die cracks are fairly common on 1982 pennies. These appear as raised lines on the coin's surface caused by cracks forming in the steel dies from the intense pressure of stamping millions of coins. Most small die cracks add minimal value, maybe a few dollars to a collector who specializes in die varieties, but major die cracks or dramatic die breaks where chunks of the die have actually broken away creating missing design elements or large raised blobs on the coin. Those can sell for $50 to $500 depending on how dramatic and unusual they are. Repunched mint marks, RPM, are another variety where the D mint mark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled appearance on the mint mark itself. These are actively collected and cataloged, with certain RPM varieties selling for $10 to $100 in nice condition. Then you've got broad strike errors where the penny was struck outside the collar that normally contains and shapes the coin, resulting in a wider, thinner, and oddly shaped penny that's still clearly identifiable as a 1982 Lincoln cent. These are surprisingly common but still collectible, typically selling for $25 to $150. Lamination errors, where the copper plating on zinc pennies starts to peel or flake off revealing the zinc core underneath, are more common on 1982s than other years due to the transition period and potential quality control issues, and while they're not worth huge amounts, they'll sell for $5 to $30 to error coin collectors who appreciate the variety. The grading situation with 1982 pennies is interesting because even common varieties in mint state condition command premiums over face value. A 1982 large date zinc penny graded MS 67 might only sell for $20 to $40, but that's still a 2,000% to 4,000% return on your initial 1-cent investment. For the scarcer varieties like the 1982 D small date copper, even lower mint state grades, MS 60 to MS 63, sell for $100 to $300, while gem examples, MS 65 and above, jump to 4 figures. The absolute top populations, those MS 68 and MS 69 specimens that represent the finest known examples, can sell for truly shocking amounts because at that level, you're not just buying a coin, you're buying the best of the best, something that might literally be one of only 3 or 4 known examples in that condition. Collectors and investors at the high end of the market will pay premium prices for condition census coins, the top 5 to 10 known examples of a particular variety in a particular grade, and 1982 pennies have a thriving market at every level from circulated to superb gem. Hold on because the next coin has an auction record that left veteran collectors absolutely speechless. Let me give you some real-world hunting strategies specifically for 1982 pennies since they're different from hunting other dates. First, you want to search penny rolls from banks. But here's the trick, instead of just grabbing random customer-rolled coins, ask if they have any machine-rolled coins from their coin counting service, because those tend to pull from a wider variety of sources and you're more likely to find older dates that have been sitting in jars for decades. Second, focus on areas with older populations or where people might have saved coins from the 1980s. Estate sales and retirement communities, for example, often have jars and albums full of coins from that era. Third, check eBay lots where people sell unsearched penny bags or rolls. Yeah, some of them have been picked through despite the claims, but you'd be amazed how many sellers don't know about the small date versus large date varieties or the copper versus zinc distinction, so they're literally selling valuable varieties for bulk prices. Fourth, network with other collectors and offer to trade or buy their 1,982 duplicates. Many collectors only keep one example of each variety and are happy to offload extras for face value or small premiums, not realizing they might be handing you a valuable error. The bottom line is that 1982 pennies deserve way more attention than they typically get because most people just see 1982 and think, oh, modern coin, worthless, when in reality you're looking at one of the most complex and potentially valuable years in Lincoln cent history. The market for high-grade 1982 pennies has been steadily climbing over the past decade as more collectors become aware of the transitional year status and the multiple varieties, and as the population of people who casually saved coins from the 1980s continues to age and their collections enter the market, we're seeing more and more rarities surface. PCGS and NGC have graded hundreds of thousands of 1982 pennies over the years, but in the highest grades, MS 67 and above, the populations drop to double digits or even single digits for some varieties, creating intense competition among registry set collectors who want the finest examples for their collections. If you're building a complete set of Lincoln cents, you'll need to acquire all 7 major varieties from 1982 just for that 1 year, which means this date gets 7 times the attention from completist collectors compared to most other years. The investment potential is real too. A nice MS 66 1982 D small date copper purchased for $100 5 years ago might sell for $300 to $500 today, and those appreciation rates are expected to continue as long as the hobby keeps growing and as long as more people learn about these coins through educational content like this video. Here's something fascinating about authenticity and counterfeiting with 1982 pennies. Because the varieties are determined by relatively subtle differences in date, style and weight, it's actually pretty hard to fake these effectively, which is great news for collectors. A counterfeiter would need to cast or strike convincing copies that match the exact design characteristics and the exact weight of either copper or zinc composition, which is technically challenging and probably not worth the effort for most varieties since they sell for modest premiums. However, for the high-value double dies and major errors, there's definitely incentive to create counterfeits, which is why professional grading becomes absolutely essential once you get into 4-figure and 5-figure territory. PCGS and NGC use sophisticated detection methods including weight analysis, metallic composition testing, microscopic die analysis, and comparison to known genuine examples in their reference collections, so coins sealed in their holders carry tremendous buyer confidence. One last thing I want to emphasize about 1982 pennies before we move to the next coin: don't overlook circulated examples. Yes, the biggest money is in mint state coins, but even heavily worn 1982 D small date coppers sell for $5 to $10 in VG or F condition, and error coins like strong double dies retain significant value even in circulated grades. I've seen -50 Australian dollars to -58 Australian dollars examples of scarcer varieties sell for hundreds of dollars because they still show all the important diagnostic features despite light circulation wear. So if you find a 1982 with interesting characteristics but it's been in circulation, don't dismiss it, check the variety, check for errors, and if you think you've got something special, send it in for grading. The coin market rewards knowledge, rewards careful observation, and rewards people who take the time to learn what they're looking at rather than just assuming everything modern is worthless. You've got the knowledge now, go find those 1982 treasures hiding in plain sight. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny, and I'm going to tell you something that sounds absolutely impossible but is 100% verified truth. While most people were watching the Los Angeles Olympics, figuring out their first personal computers, or jamming to Madonna and Prince on MTV, the United States Mint was producing Lincoln pennies with errors so dramatic and so incredibly rare that the finest examples have sold for as much as $38 million at major numismatic auctions, making this date one of the most sought-after modern pennies in existence. The 1984 penny sits in that sweet spot where it's recent enough that millions still exist in circulation but old enough that true mint state examples are becoming scarce, and when you add in the spectacular errors produced that year, you've got a recipe for serious collector demand and serious money. Let me paint you a picture of why 1984 pennies deserve your immediate attention. During this year, the Philadelphia and Denver mints collectively produced over 13 billion pennies for circulation, which seems like an absurd number that would make rarity impossible. But here's the secret that professional coin dealers and serious collectors know: it's not about how many coins were made, it's about how many were made with specific errors and how many of those survived in pristine condition. Among those billions of ordinary 1984 pennies, a tiny fraction feature double die errors, with the 1984 double die obverse being one of the most dramatic and valuable double die varieties of the entire modern era. When I say dramatic, I mean you can literally see the doubling with your naked eye from a normal viewing distance. The word liberty shows intense doubling where each letter appears to have a bold shadow. In God We Trust has pronounced doubling especially on the G, O, D, and T. And even the date 1984 itself shows clear separation and doubling on all 4 digits. Before we dive deeper, subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now and turn on notifications because the coins we cover could literally be sitting in your pocket right now, and every video might be the one that helps you spot a fortune. The 1984 double die obverse penny is so well known among collectors that it has its own designation in major coin reference guides, FS 101 in the 5S Stanton attribution system, and examples of this variety have sold at auction for absolutely stunning prices that increase dramatically with grade. A circulated example in VF to XF condition might sell for $150 to $300, which is already incredible for something that started as 1 cent, but an AU example jumps to $500 to $800, and once you hit mint state, the values go exponential. An MS 63 example might bring $1,500 to $2,500, an MS 65 can reach $5,000 to $8,000, and gem examples graded MS 66 and above. We're talking 5 figures easily, with MS 67 specimens selling for $20,000 to $40,000, and the absolute finest known examples in MS 68 reaching six figures when they hit the auction block. Now you might be wondering, what makes the doubling on 1984 pennies so much more dramatic and valuable than double dies from other years? The answer lies in how pronounced and complete the doubling is across the entire obverse design. This isn't subtle doubling that requires magnification to see. This is in your face, impossible to miss doubling that creates incredible eye appeal and makes these coins absolutely stunning to look at even for people who aren't coin collectors. When a non-collector sees a 1984 double die penny, their immediate reaction is usually, "Whoa, something's wrong with this coin," and that visual impact is exactly what drives collector demand through the roof. Plus, the doubling shows what's called Class 1 characteristics, meaning it's a true hub doubling error where the working die received multiple impressions from the master hub with a slight rotation between strikes, creating the strongest and most desirable type of doubling rather than weaker varieties caused by other mechanical issues. Wait until you hear what happened when someone brought one of these to an appraisal event thinking it was a damaged penny. The story will absolutely blow your mind. Let me walk you through the exact identification process for spotting a 1984 double die obverse so you can check your own pennies with confidence. First, examine the word Liberty running vertically along the left side of Lincoln's profile. On a genuine double die, you'll see strong doubling on every letter, but it's most dramatic on the L, the E, the R, the second R, and the Y at the bottom. The doubling creates what looks like a shadow or echo effect, almost like the letters were stamped, then stamped again slightly to the left and down. Second, check "In God We Trust" above Lincoln's head. The doubling here is pronounced on God and trust with that same shadow effect. Third, look at the date 1984 itself. You should see clear doubling on all four numbers, particularly visible on the vertical strokes of the ones and the curved portions of the 8, 9, and 4. Fourth, examine the mint mark. If it's a Denver coin with the D mint mark, on some but not all double die examples, you might see minor doubling on the mint mark too. The key is that all of these areas should show doubling on a genuine example. If you only see doubling in one spot, you might be looking at strike doubling or machine doubling, which is essentially worthless. Here's a pro tip: use your phone's camera to take close-up shots of the doubling you see, then zoom in on those photos because sometimes the doubling is easier to see in a photograph than looking at the physical coin. Plus you can compare your photos side by side with authenticated examples online to verify you're seeing the same characteristics. If everything matches up and you're confident you found a genuine 1984 double die obverse, do not clean the coin under any circumstances. I cannot stress this enough. Cleaning coins destroys their value by removing original surface characteristics and luster that grading services look for, so even if your coin looks dirty or tarnished, leave it exactly as is and send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. The $35 to $50 grading fee is the best investment you'll ever make if the coin comes back genuine, because now you have a certified, authenticated coin in a tamper-evident holder that you can sell with complete buyer confidence for the full market value. Don't miss what's coming next, because that coin has collectors literally fighting bidding wars that last hours at major auctions. Now let's talk about other valuable errors and varieties found on 1984 pennies beyond just the famous double die obverse, because there's more treasure to hunt for than most people realize. Repunched mint marks on 1984 D pennies occur when the D was punched into the working die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating doubling or tripling on the mint mark itself. These are actively collected and cataloged, with major RPM variety selling for $25 to $200 depending on how dramatic the repunching is. Off-center strikes are another valuable error where the design is struck off-center on the planchet, and value depends on how far off-center it is while still showing the date and mint mark. A 10% off-center might sell for $20 to $40, a 25% off-center jumps to $50 to $100, and anything 40% or more off-center with full date can reach $200 to $500 or more depending on condition. Wrong planchet errors are the holy grail though. Imagine a 1984 penny struck on a dime planchet, quarter planchet, or even a foreign coin blank, and you've got something worth thousands to tens of thousands of dollars, because these are dramatic, unmistakable errors that almost never make it out of the mint. Die breaks and die cut errors where a piece of the die has broken off creating a raised blob of metal on the coin can sell for $30 to $150 for major examples, while smaller die cracks add just a few dollars but are still collectible for variety specialists. The condition and grading of 1984 pennies follows the standard 70-point Sheldon scale that's used for all U.S. coins, but understanding how this applies specifically to modern pennies is important. For 1984 pennies to grade mint state, MS 60 or above, they must have absolutely zero wear on the highest points of the design. Even the slightest hint of friction or rubbing from circulation drops them into the about uncirculated category, which isn't bad but definitely reduces value compared to mint state. Within the mint state range, MS 60 to MS 62 coins have noticeable bag marks, scratches, or imperfections but still maintain their original luster. MS 63 to MS 64 coins show fewer marks and better overall appearance. MS 65 to MS 66 coins are gems with minimal imperfections and strong eye appeal, and MS 67 and above are superb gems that are virtually perfect to the naked eye with only microscopic imperfections visible under magnification. For common 1984 pennies without errors, mint state examples sell for $1 to $5 in MS 65, $10 to $20 in MS 66, and $50 to $100 in MS 67, which doesn't sound like much but that's still 100x to 10,000x face value. For the double die varieties, multiply those base prices by 100x to 1,000x depending on the strength of the error and the specific variety. If this treasure hunt is getting you pumped up, smash that like button and share this video with friends because they need to know what to look for in their change. One of the most incredible discovery stories involving a 1984 double die penny happened in Oregon back in 2016. A schoolteacher was doing a lesson on money and math with her second grade class, and one of the kids brought in a jar of pennies from home to count as part of the exercise. While sorting through the pennies by date, the teacher noticed one of the 1984 pennies looked odd because the letters appeared blurry or doubled, and she remembered seeing something online about valuable error coins, so she set it aside. After school, she researched double die pennies and realized she might have something special, so she contacted a local coin dealer who confirmed it was indeed a genuine 1984 double die obverse. The penny technically belonged to the student who brought the jar, so the teacher contacted the parents, explained what they had, and helped them get it graded. It came back PCGS MS 64, and it sold at a heritage auction for $6,200. The family was blown away because that jar of pennies had been sitting in their garage for years, and one coin in it was worth more than their monthly mortgage payment. The teacher got a generous thank you gift, the student learned an unforgettable lesson about paying attention to details, and everyone involved gained a new appreciation for checking their pocket change. Stories like this prove that these valuable coins aren't just theoretical, they're really out there waiting to be discovered by anyone with knowledge and a sharp eye. Let's talk current market trends because the 1984 double die penny market has been on an absolute tear over the past 5 years. As more people have become educated about modern errors through YouTube, social media, and coin forums, demand has increased dramatically while the supply of high-grade examples remains extremely limited. After all, most 1984 pennies went into circulation and got beat up, so finding pristine examples is increasingly difficult 40 years later. Auction prices have reflected this increasing demand with new record highs being set regularly for top-grade specimens. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have all featured multiple five-figure 1984 double die sales in recent years, and each new record brings more attention to these coins, creates more media coverage, and drives even more people to start searching their pennies. It's a beautiful upward spiral if you're fortunate enough to own one of these treasures. The population reports from PCGS and NGC show just how rare these coins are in top grades. For example, as of late 2024, PCGS had graded only 37 examples of the 1984 double die obverse in MS 66, only 11 in MS 67, and just 2 in MS 68, making it clear that at the gem level and above, you're dealing with genuinely rare coins even though billions of regular 1984 pennies were made. Hunting strategies for 1984 pennies are similar to what I recommended for 1982s, bank rolls, estate sales, garage sales, coin shows, and online lots are all productive hunting grounds. One additional strategy specific to 1984 pennies is to buy bulk lots of circulated pennies on eBay where sellers offer thousands of coins from the 1980s for bulk prices. Yes, you'll have to sort through a lot of common pennies, but the math works in your favor because even finding one AU double die that sells for $500 pays for hundreds of dollars worth of bulk penny purchases. Some collectors make a hobby out of penny roll hunting where they search through $25 to $100 worth of rolled pennies every week, keep anything valuable or interesting, and return the rest to the bank. It costs nothing but time, and the potential payoff is enormous if you find that one special coin among thousands of common ones. The key is persistence and knowledge. The more you search and the more you know about what to look for, the better your odds of making a significant find. Remember that every single 1984 penny you encounter has the potential to be that $1 million double die, so checking each one becomes less of a chore and more of an exciting opportunity. Here's something that separates casual lookers from serious hunters: organization and record keeping. If you're going to search through thousands of pennies looking for valuable varieties, you need a system for tracking what you've searched, what you found, and what you still need. Many successful penny hunters use coin albums or folders specifically designed for Lincoln cents, where you can organize coins by date and mint mark, storage tubes labeled by year to hold extras, and spreadsheets tracking which varieties you've found and which you're still searching for. This organizational approach prevents you from wasting time researching the same pennies and helps you identify gaps in your collection that you should focus on filling. Plus, if you do find valuable coins, proper storage in coin flips, tubes, or albums protects them from damage and maintains their condition until you're ready to sell or get them graded. Some hunters even use USB microscopes connected to their computers to examine coins in detail and photograph interesting finds, creating a digital reference library of potential varieties and errors they've discovered. This level of documentation can be incredibly valuable if you're trying to attribute specific die varieties or if you need to prove when and where you found a particular coin. The investment you make in basic supplies, coin albums, storage tubes, magnifying glass or loupe, digital scale, USB microscope, pays for itself many times over when you find that first valuable error coin. Before we move to our final coin, I want to emphasize the educational value of studying 1984 pennies and errors in general, because this knowledge applies across the entire Lincoln cent series and really all of US coinage. Once you understand what double dies are, how they're created, how to identify them, and why they're valuable, you can apply that same knowledge to quarters, nickels, dimes, and dollars. Error coins exist across every denomination and every year, and the principles of identification and valuation remain consistent. By focusing on 1984 pennies, you're not just learning about one specific coin, you're developing expertise in numismatic error recognition that makes you a better collector and a more successful treasure hunter overall. The skills you build examining pennies under magnification, comparing them to reference images, understanding grading standards, and navigating the market for selling coins, all of this creates a foundation that serves you well whether you're collecting for fun, investing for profit, or somewhere in between. And who knows? The knowledge you gain from this video might help you spot not just a valuable 1984 penny but errors and varieties across your entire collection that you never knew had value. Keep learning, keep searching, and keep that passion for discovery alive, because this hobby rewards knowledge more than almost anything else. Next, 1994 Lincoln penny, the grand finale of our treasure hunt today, and I'm saving the absolute best for last because while the previous coins we've covered were incredible, this date has a story so compelling, errors so valuable, and market demand so intense that specimens have sold for as much as $29 million. And what makes this even more exciting is that 1994 was just 30 years ago. Many of you watching this video were alive, handling money, and potentially spending these exact coins without realizing you might have been holding a future fortune. The 1994 penny represents peak modern coin production, with the Denver Mint alone producing over 6.5 billion pennies that year, but as you've learned throughout this video, massive mintage numbers don't prevent individual error coins from being extremely valuable when they combine rarity, eye appeal, and strong collector demand. Let me tell you what makes 1994 pennies absolutely special and why you need to search through every single one you can find. The headline attraction is the 1994 D double die obverse, which features dramatic doubling on the obverse design that rivals and in some ways exceeds the famous 1984 double die we just covered. We're talking bold, obvious, unmissable doubling that creates an almost 3D effect on the letters, making this one of the most visually striking modern mint errors in existence. The doubling on Liberty is so pronounced that even someone with no coin collecting knowledge can see it immediately. The letters look like they were stamped twice with a clear shadow offset, creating an appearance that's both beautiful and obviously unusual. In God We Trust shows the same dramatic doubling, particularly on the letters G, O, D, and T, and the date 1994 displays clear separation on all four digits with that distinctive doubled appearance. Collectors who specialize in modern errors consider the 1994 D double die to be one of the big three double dies of the modern era alongside the 1983 and 1984 varieties, and when high-grade examples appear at auction, the competition gets absolutely fierce among serious Lincoln cent collectors who need this coin to complete their mint error sets. Subscribe to the Coin Merchant if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell because every video we drop could be the one that helps you identify a life-changing coin in your possession. The values for 1994 D double die pennies are nothing short of spectacular across all grade levels. A heavily circulated example in good to very good condition still sells for $75 to $150, which is an incredible return on face value, and as you move up in grade, the prices increase exponentially. Fine to very fine examples bring $200 to $400, extremely fine jumps to $500 to $800, about uncirculated reaches $1,000 to $2,000, and once you hit mint state the values go absolutely crazy. An MS-63 specimen typically sells for $3,000 to $5,000, MS-64 jumps to $6,000 to $10,000, MS-65 reaches $12,000 to $20,000, and gem examples graded MS-66 and above. We're talking $25,000 to $50,000 for MS-66, $60,000 to $100,000 for MS-67, and the handful of MS-68 examples that exist have sold for well over $100,000 each at major auctions. PCGS and NGC population reports show just how rare these coins are in top grades. There are only a few dozen MS-66 examples certified between both services combined, fewer than 10 MS-67s, and perhaps only 2 or 3 MS-68s total, making top-tier specimens of this variety genuinely rare by any definition. Now let me share with you an absolutely incredible discovery story that shows these coins really do turn up in the most unexpected places. Back in 2018, a man in Michigan was cleaning out his late father's workbench in the garage and found an old coffee can filled with pennies, screws, and miscellaneous hardware. His father had been a machinist who apparently would empty his pockets into this can at the end of each workday for decades, and it had been sitting untouched since his passing in 2012. The son was about to dump the whole thing into a coin-counting machine at the bank when his wife, who'd been watching coin videos online, suggested they at least quickly check for anything obvious. They started pulling out pennies by date, and when they got to the 1994 D pennies, one of them had this weird doubling on the letters that caught their attention even though neither of them were coin collectors. They posted pictures in an online coin forum, and within an hour, experienced collectors were freaking out, telling them to preserve that coin carefully and get it graded immediately. They sent it to PCGS, and it came back as MS-65, which absolutely shocked them because the coin had been sitting in a dirty can with screws and bolts for 6 years after the father's death and who knows how long before that. They consigned it to Heritage Auctions where it sold for $17,800, completely changing their financial situation during a difficult time and creating a lasting reminder of the father who'd unknowingly saved a treasure. Can you imagine being that close to just dumping a $17,000 coin into a Coinstar machine that would have kept it as a reject or given you literally 1 cent for it? Knowledge saves fortunes, which is why channels like this exist and why you need to share this information with everyone you know who handles money. Identifying a genuine 1994 D double die obverse requires careful examination of multiple areas on the coin, so let me walk you through the authentication process step by step. First and most importantly, confirm the coin is from the Denver Mint by locating the D Mint mark below the date on the obverse. If there's no mint mark, it's a Philadelphia penny, and while Philly double dies exist for 1994, they're much rarer and have different characteristics than the Denver variety. Second, examine Liberty with magnification. You should see strong doubling on every single letter, most pronounced on the L, E, R, T, and Y, creating that distinctive shadow or echo effect where the letters appear to have been printed twice with slight offset. The doubling should be uniform and consistent across all letters, not random or spotty. Third, check In God We Trust above Lincoln's head. Again, you're looking for that same bold doubling on all letters, particularly obvious on God and Trust. Fourth, inspect the date 1994 carefully. Genuine double die examples show clear doubling on all 4 numerals, visible even without magnification if you know what you're looking for. Fifth, look at the rest of the obverse design including Lincoln's portrait and the motto. On the strongest double die examples, you might even see slight doubling on the highest points of Lincoln's hair and jacket. The key diagnostic is that the doubling must be present across all these elements. If you only see doubling in one area, you're probably looking at machine doubling or die deterioration, not a genuine double die error. Here's a critical warning: there are fake 1994 D double die pennies out there created by people trying to cash in on the high values, so never buy one raw, ungraded, from a seller you don't know extremely well, and never pay premium prices without authentication from PCGS or NGC. The most common fakes are created by altering regular 1994 D pennies through various methods to create fake doubling, or by creating cast copies from genuine double dies that might fool beginners but won't pass professional authentication. This is why the $35 to $50 grading fee is so critical. It protects both buyer and seller by providing third-party verification that the coin is genuine, determines the exact grade which heavily influences value, and seals the coin in a tamper-evident holder that ensures what's inside is what the label says it is. If someone offers you what they claim is a 1994 D double die for a few $100s raw, run away. If it were genuine, they'd get it graded and sell it for thousands, so the fact they're not doing that tells you everything you need to know about authenticity. This is our final coin today, so before we wrap up, make sure you hit that subscribe button to the Coin Merchant, smash the like button if this video helped you learn something valuable, share this with anyone who needs to check their coin collections, and drop a comment below if you found any interesting pennies from the years we covered. I love reading about viewer discoveries. Beyond the famous 1994 D double die obverse, there are numerous other errors and varieties from 1994 that deserve your attention and can add significant value to otherwise common pennies. Wide AM and close AM varieties refer to the spacing between the A and M in America on the reverse of the penny. Starting in 1993, the mint switched to a design where the A and M were closer together, but occasionally dies from the old wide AM design were still used, creating scarce varieties that collectors actively seek. A 1994 D wide AM penny can sell for $20 to $100 depending on condition, which isn't life-changing money but still beats face value by 2,000x to 10,000x. Repunched mint marks on 1994 D pennies show up frequently with the D appearing to be stamped multiple times in slightly different positions. Major RPM varieties are cataloged and collected, selling for $15 to $75 for strong examples. Off-center strikes follow the same value pattern we discussed with earlier dates. Minor off-center strikes, 5 to 10%, sell for $10 to $30, moderate strikes, 20 to 30%, jump to $50 to $150, and major strikes, 40% plus, with full date and mint mark can reach $200 to $600 depending on how dramatic and visually appealing they are. Die breaks, die cuts, and die cracks are also actively collected with major examples selling for $25 to $200. Look for large raised blobs of metal, missing design elements where part of the die broke away, or dramatic raised lines across the design from die cracks. And then there's the really exotic stuff like wrong planchet errors where 1994 D penny dies accidentally struck dime planchets, quarter planchets, or foreign coin blanks. These are incredibly rare but absolutely valuable when they do surface, typically selling for $5,000 to $50,000 depending on the specific error and condition. Every 1994 penny you check is an opportunity to find something special, so don't limit yourself to just looking for the big double die. Train your eye to spot any and all abnormalities because they all have potential value. Let me share some advanced hunting techniques that serious error coin collectors use to maximize their chances of finding valuable modern pennies like these 1994 D double dies. First, cultivate relationships with bank tellers and let them know you're a coin collector interested in buying entire boxes of penny rolls. Sometimes tellers will call you when new penny boxes arrive, giving you first crack at searching before other hunters get to them. Second, attend estate sales and auctions. Especially for older collectors who may have accumulated coins throughout their lives without necessarily sorting through them for errors, you can often buy entire collections for reasonable prices because the sellers don't know about modern errors and think only old coins have value. Third, join online coin communities and forums where members trade and sell coins. You'd be amazed how many people find interesting varieties but don't specialize in that area, so they're willing to sell to someone who appreciates it for very reasonable prices. Fourth, consider buying cull or damaged coin lots from dealers who pull out anything in nice condition but sell the rest in bulk. Yes, most will be genuinely damaged or worn, but occasionally valuable errors end up in these lots because the dealer didn't specialize in errors and missed them. Fifth, never stop learning and expanding your knowledge. The more you understand about die varieties, mint errors, and what makes coins valuable, the better equipped you are to spot treasures that others walk right past. The coin collecting community is generally very helpful and welcoming to newcomers, so don't be afraid to ask questions, share your finds, and learn from people with more experience. Current market conditions for 1994 D double die pennies and modern errors in general are incredibly strong and show no signs of weakening. As younger generations discover coin collecting through social media and YouTube rather than traditional coin shops and clubs, demand for visually dramatic errors like double dies has exploded. These are coins that photograph well, create instant wow factor, and capture people's imagination in ways that subtle die varieties might not. Auction houses have responded to this demand by featuring more modern errors in their premier sales, and prices have risen accordingly with new records being set regularly. The population of people who were actively handling and potentially saving coins in 1994 is now in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, which means childhood collections assembled 3 decades ago are starting to re-enter the market as people clean out closets, move homes, or rediscover old hobbies. This creates a steady stream of coins being found and graded, but the supply of top-tier specimens remains extremely limited because most 1994 pennies went into heavy circulation and got damaged. The combination of strong demand, limited high-grade supply, and increasing mainstream awareness through educational content like this video suggests the market for premium modern errors will remain robust for years to come. From an investment perspective, buying certified high-grade examples of famous errors like the 1994 D double die has proven to be a solid strategy. A coin purchased 5 years ago in MS-65 for $12,000 might sell today for $18,000 to $22,000, representing a 50% to 80% appreciation that beats many traditional investments, and the trajectory suggests continued growth as long as the hobby attracts new collectors. Grading standards and market dynamics for 1994 pennies require understanding some nuances specific to modern coins. Because 1994 pennies are relatively recent, there are still mint-state examples available in the marketplace, but that doesn't mean they're easy to find in true gem condition. After 30 years of sitting in collections, albums, or storage, even unminted coins can develop toning, spotting, or surface issues that prevent them from grading above MS-64 or MS-65. This is why MS-66 and above examples command such massive premiums. They're coins that somehow avoided all the pitfalls that typically affect stored coins over decades, maintaining pristine surfaces, full luster, and perfect eye appeal. When PCGS or NGC grades a modern penny, they're extremely strict about surface preservation because there's an expectation that recent coins should be nearly perfect if they've truly been preserved properly, whereas with older coins from the early 1900s, graders make allowances for natural toning and age-related characteristics. This stringent grading standard for modern coins means that population numbers in top grades remain very low even for dates produced in the billions, creating genuine rarity at the high end of the quality spectrum. If you're considering submitting a 1994 D double die or any other modern era for grading, make absolutely certain you handle it properly. Hold coins by the edges only, never touch the obverse or reverse surfaces with your bare fingers because skin oils cause spotting and toning over time. Store in inert plastic flips or capsules rather than cardboard holders or envelopes, which can cause environmental damage. And never attempt to clean or improve the coin's appearance because professional graders can detect cleaning instantly and will either grade the coin lower or refuse to grade it at all. Proper handling and storage can literally mean thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in value difference for high-end error coins, so take the time to do it right. Let me share one final inspirational story to close out this video. There's a collector in California who started penny roll hunting as a hobby back in 2015, searching through maybe $50 to $100 worth of pennies per week that he'd buy from different banks in his area. He found plenty of wheat pennies, some minor varieties, but nothing spectacular for the first year. Then in early 2017, he found a 1994 D penny with doubling that looked interesting, so he sent it to PCGS on a whim as part of a larger submission. When the coin came back graded as a genuine 1994 D double die obverse in MS-64, he was absolutely shocked because he'd found it in a customer-old penny roll from a bank. He sold it at auction for $9,100, which more than paid for 3 years of penny purchases and grading fees, and that find motivated him to continue hunting with even more passion. To date, he's found 3 more 1994 D double dies, all circulated, selling for $150 to $600 each, 2 1984 double dies, one -53 Australian dollars that sold for $850, and dozens of other valuable varieties and errors across different denominations. His total profit from a hobby he does during TV time in the evenings is over $35,000, and he says the excitement of the hunt is worth far more than the money. Stories like this prove that patient, persistent, knowledgeable collectors can and do find valuable treasures through systematic searching, and there's absolutely no reason you can't be the next success story if you apply what you've learned in this video. So here's my challenge to you as we close out: tonight, tomorrow, or whenever you next have free time, grab whatever pennies you have access to and actually check them. Don't just think about it, don't just file this information away, actually take action and look at your coins. Check those 1971 D pennies for double dies, examine your 1982s to determine which varieties you have, study your 1984s for the dramatic doubling, and carefully inspect every 1994 D for the double die obverse and other errors. Share this video with friends, family, co-workers, and anyone else who might have coins sitting around. because the more people who learn this information, the more discoveries will be made and the more lives will be changed by what seems like ordinary pocket change but is actually hidden treasure. Make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Merchant with notifications on, because we'll continue bringing you information about valuable coins you can actually find, teaching you the identification skills you need to spot errors, and sharing the knowledge that turns casual coin handlers into successful treasure hunters. Drop a comment below telling me which date you're most excited to search for, whether you've already found any interesting varieties, or just to let me know this video helped you. I read every comment and love hearing from viewers who are taking action on this information. Remember, knowledge is wealth in the coin collecting world, and you now have the knowledge to potentially find fortunes hiding in plain sight. The coins are out there, the opportunity is real, and your next handful of pennies could contain that one specimen that changes your financial future forever. Keep searching, keep learning, and never stop believing that the next coin you examine might be the one. Thank you so much for watching the Coin Merchant. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore even more valuable coins waiting to be discovered. Until then, happy hunting, and may you find all the treasures you're searching for.